Starcraft 2. I'm sure many of you have heard of it, maybe even tried to get into it a few times, but most likely, like those brave souls before you, you gave up, destined to drift in and out of interest and disappointment when you ultimately get fucking cannon rushed for the 5th game in a row. Many would attribute this to Starcraft being hard to get into, and honestly, I'd be hard pressed to disagree. However, I don't believe it's a game that's initial difficulty is higher than any other games. Personally, I believe the problem lies on how people like to naturally approach learning games or activities in general. Due to Starcraft's unfamiliar control scheme and the lack of multitasking required in a lot of other popular games, people will often not have problems learning in the game necessarily. Rather, the struggle will be in working out how to learn. And that's where I step in. I have set out on a noble conquest to climb my way up the ladder, making countless mistakes and learning a great many things along the way, so you don't have to. I'll take a dive into the learning curve of this game, documenting my progress and key learning points along the way, as well as noting what I was focusing on at any given time. This series will usually be split up into a video per division, but I found that the differences between bronze and silver were so negligible that creating 3 different videos would be bare bones at best and redundant at worst. Thus, they will be both put in this video. It's important to note that this series will be focused on Protoss specifically, but a majority of techniques and general learning points outlined, especially early on, will most likely be just as applicable to all other races, and I'll outline any key differences I become aware of where I can. Finally, due to the nature of this series, I will almost certainly say something that is wrong or can be deemed inefficient. I will correct anything in future videos that I realise is wrong as I learn more, although feel free to let me know how much of a brain dead TOS player I am, it helps feed my victim complex. Regardless, let's dive in to the Starcraft 2 experience, bronze and silver. Picture this. The install finishes. With anticipation and little hesitation, I click play. With a fire in my eyes, heart, and possibly house, I go to versus and select the sexiest race in the game. My heart rate rises to mirror Cyril's APM, and with conviction and utter confidence, I immediately Alt F4 and start browsing YouTube for guidance. Oh, hey, here you are. Well, you come to the right place. For all my searching, I found honestly really nothing of much use for real beginners, apart from maybe Winter Starcraft. Now, I'll get into some issues I have with some of his beginner videos later, but on a general note, he has a phenomenal series that helps simplify what needs to be focused on for a new player, which is a technique I'll be utilising a lot later as well. It's an amazing place to start, and I will link some of his videos in the description, and this will be for all races. But what next? Well, as the chapter name suggests, it's time to take some baby steps. If you're truly completely new to Starcraft and/or strategy games in general, I would highly recommend starting with the campaign. Although each campaign has its problems, they all still do a phenomenal job of helping you understand what each unit of a race does, as well as giving you a stress-free sandbox to play around with and get used to them on your own terms. If you know what race you want to play, you can just play the campaign of the race you like, but I would recommend playing all 3, especially if you're still unsure on your race. After you completed this, move on to a couple of AI games on very easy, or if you're feeling particularly spicy, easy. And once you can consistently beat them, I'd say you're ready for the next step. Okay, I've got a feel for how the game plays and what units do what. Now, how do I decide on my race? This one is entirely down to how you feel. If you're still unsure, that's fine. Keep playing around with the races and AI games until you find the race you'll enjoy the most. Don't worry, this will probably change a lot in the future, so it's not a permanent choice. For me personally, I'd already played this game and Zerg is what I'm most familiar with, but I wanted a fresh start for this series. The slow but steady accumulation of power while barely holding onto your infrastructures as the relentless swarm of bugs, and worse yet, humans, claw at your walls was exciting and engaging to me. That, and honestly, fuck Terrans. The last tip I'll give when making a decision is to not just focus on gameplay. Aesthetics, especially early on, play a big part in how you feel when playing a game. Zerg makes you feel fast and powerful, running circles around their stupid little zealots with miniature blue hedgehogs armed with gnashers, picking off worker after worker and making off like a bandit. Protoss feels slow and deliberate, helping you really think through your plans and positioning, giving you an overall strategist feel, perfect for us narcissists. And Terran makes you feel American.
That check has been the whole point of the sequence, beginning with the bishop cutting down the scope of the book by forcing it to a less threatening rank.
I'd struggled to count the amount of times I'd returned to Starcraft. Watch a few videos on how to get into the game, and after following the advice and maxing out against the AI that might as well be lobotomized 4 to 5 times in a row, I just give up, return another day and do it all again. Through countless hours of introspection and soul searching, I came to the bone-shaking conclusion that I was fucking bored. And while it may not be a tech scouting revelation in theory, realizing this was a key step towards learning to appreciate the game and treat it as something to enjoy, rather than work on. And that brings me to a point that I deem so incredibly important, especially early on, that it will persist throughout the majority of this video, so get used to it. Fun will always be more efficient than true efficiency if true efficiency isn't fun. What do I mean by this? In essence, if you're not enjoying the most efficient ways of learning the game, you both won't learn at all and most likely won't stick to it. Therefore, it will almost always be better to do what you find fun. This will apply less and less as you play the game more and more and your priorities shift from having fun doing stupid things to having fun by not losing as much. But early on, this is so crucial, I can't express it enough. With this in mind, how do you have fun and learn at the same time? While AI games have their places and uses to a new player, I would only recommend playing them for a little while as you get the hang of things, and if you get anxious about playing against people. They act so detached to how a real player would act that it honestly feels cold and unrewarding to beat them. As soon as you can, I would move on to playing against people, and honestly, please avoid unranked. It may seem less stressful, but the competition will leave you never wanting to play again. Just trust me on this one. When you load up your first ranked game, I want you to do one thing. Surrender. Just all of your placement games. Just load in and surrender. You may think, I might as well try to see where I get placed, but trust me, spending 10 minutes in a game for the opponent to just walk all over you with 200 supply while you're still working out how to produce an adept will leave you demoralized and destroyed beyond belief. Save your ego, surrender. Now let's move on. When you play a few ladder games, you'll quickly realise that people will either sit on 2 bases with 15 tanks at their natural for the whole game while they play SimCity with their barracks, or they'll have a pylon in your main by 1 minute that smells suspiciously like gunpowder. Welcome to Silver. So what do you do about this? Well, as the wise Solaire once said, if you can't beat him, join him. Oh no. Poor Solaire. If you want to beat the cheese and have fun doing it, you have to look at your enemy, ensure you lack any respect for them, and immediately cheese the fuck out of them. I'm talking 12 pulls, DT drops, playing Terran, the whole shebang. And as you try this, game after game, maybe you get a few wins. You have a lot of fun, but ultimately it doesn't work very well, and this is for one big important reason. Your mechanics suck! Cheese builds are fun and exciting, but often hard to pull off. I recommend using an all-in build instead. They're easy to execute, extremely effective, and if you find one that hits early enough, you often outspeed any cheese. Another reason to do this is because it gives you a rigid plan that's simple to execute. This allows you to focus on other things around the map and to practice multitasking without the pressure of having to work out what to do next. It's important to note that for a long time early in your Starcraft journey, you will essentially be trading back and forth between micro and macro. You simply won't be able to control 2 adepts across the map, as well as keep up in workers and not get supply blocked and keep producing and so on. With an all-in, you often cut all macro just before your attack hits, allowing you to play around with microing your units and practice target priority and stutter stepping without worrying about losing out on economy. One build I found phenomenal to learn with is Hushang's 1 base 4 gate Stalker all-in that I will link below. It's simple but devilishly effective. I would suggest doing this all the way up until gold, but if you get bored or impatient along the way, the next section is for you.
Boys, today the plan is simple.
So, you think you're ready to move on and you can't be bothered to all into gold, or perhaps you're bored of winning in the same way at the same time every game. Well, I'll be covering most of this in the next video, but for now I can say this. If you're ever in doubt about learning something, or you feel like you're struggling with something that you understand in theory but can't execute, you should always simplify. If you're struggling to execute a build order, play on slower game speeds until you perfect it and move up gradually. Losing fights because you accidentally run your spellcasters into the enemy team and then move command your army past them, losing half of them before you even start fighting. Simplify what units you use. A few High Templar and a Sentry will outvalue an Archon or 2 when used effectively any day, but if you're still learning, that Archon will have far more value than any amount of High Templars that you won't be able to control properly. I can't say it enough, it's so important. Simplify until you've perfected the simple stuff. If you take nothing else away from this video, the most important thing to remember is that this is a game. If you're not having fun, try something weird and exciting. If you're still not having fun, stop. There's no shame in not enjoying a game, and maybe it just isn't for you, but I hope from this you've been able to ease yourself into this game a little better. Maybe this is your second or third or fourth or even fifth time trying this game, and I hope this is the time you really connect with it and experience the joy that is this infamous game. Over the next god knows how long, I'll be streaming my arduous climb through gold. Twitch.tv/LackingLumby, by the way. Feel free to drop by and hang out and laugh at me getting supply blocked at 23 supply, or simply to chat. Thank you very much for watching. I look forward to next time. Goodbye.